It is clear from the figures presented in the Sutton Trust report that parents from disadvantaged backgrounds are not alone in their lack of confidence in supporting their children's schooling. And here I pause to emphasize the importance of the vocabulary I've been using throughout this article. It matters because it sits at the heart of the problem highlighted during the lockdowns, which for the first time has provided evidence from the parents' point of view en masse. More recently, research, again, the Sutton Trust Learning from Lockdown 2021 can be quoted here, has shown how institutionalized assumptions have been so ingrained over decades that teachers and other experienced educationalists find it hard to question accepted practice. Moreover, the research methodology itself reveals how ingrained these false assumptions are. I've already mentioned the Sutton Trust research paper, Learning in Lockdown, in January 2021, which takes its data from various sources. One of the graphs shown represents the findings from a teacher chat survey of secondary school teachers in England on January the 13th, 2021. The data is presented in a series of bar charts entitled Reasons for Not Engaging with Online Learning, bracket, secondary school teachers, bracket, by deprivation level of school. The reasons given within the survey for teachers about why pupils were not engaging with remote schooling were: 1. Limited / no parental support for learning. 2. General, long-standing poor attitude towards schoolwork in general. 3. Lack of independent study skills, e.g. self-discipline, organisation. 4. Lack of access to suitable technology. 5. Some form of SEND, making accessibility to work an issue. 6. Age / maturity of students. 7. Mixed messages from central government. 8. Another reason. 9. Not relevant. All pupils are engaging with online learning. The Sutton Trust report goes on to say that the most common reason that teachers gave for pupils not engaging with online learning were, quote, limited or no parental support. 60%. This is revealing in more ways than one. How could teachers have come by the information they need to reach this conclusion unless by assumption? Do they believe what they are saying? And if so, is this attitude a self-limiting one that ignores the potential of what parents are good at? Perhaps the question posed in that survey should have been expressed in a different way. One that recognized the difference between schooling and learning, and the consolidation of schooling. In which case, the question, and here it is, the most common reason that teachers gave for pupils not engaging with online schooling would have been, answer, in spite of sharing a love for learning, their parents were not familiar with the curriculum content. This paints a very different picture about the relationships parents can have with their children's schooling and the expectation and pressure schools unwittingly place on their relationship with parents. As a profession, we have to move away from what can be seen as a default assumption that parents are not interested in what their children do in school. This was an issue picked up in an article published in Schools Week in April 2022, written by Jonathan Simon, head of the education practice at Public First. Quote, Public First do a huge amount of qualitative research with parents. Almost every single one wants to help their children in any way they can. They mostly trust their schools implicitly, especially at primary. But probe underneath the surface, and many of them will say, almost embarrassed, that they often don't really know how their child is doing and what they can do to help. Parents want a meaningful relationship with their children's school that recognizes the important role that parents play in the lives of their children and which focuses on information relating to their child. What I'm saying may be considered to be revolutionary by some, but the test of seeing the difference between the approach I am advocating and the approaches being used in most schools now is whether you are getting the benefits within the well-established academic research. Other than raised attainment, a more comprehensive list of those benefits would include raised achievement, self-esteem and aspirations, increased motivation and engagement, improved behavior, increased attendance at school, better emotional adjustment, and greater well-being. And that research is quoted by Deforge and Abushar, 2003, Lopez and Donovan, 2009, Silver et al. In 2003, Goodall and Vorhaus, 2011, Epstein, 2001, Henderson and Matt, 2002, James, 2007, El Nokal et al., 2010, and Hornby and Lafayette, 2011. Your school will have a parental engagement tool. But have you seen these predicted benefits over the years? On a national level, if what most school leaders think of as being parental engagement is parental engagement, mentioned in the academic research, why are we facing an unparalleled attendance crisis and feel the need for the establishment of behavior hubs? Not to mention the achievement gap that before the pandemic had remained more or less static for decades. The CSJ's proposed parental participation strategy recognizes the importance of the functionality that schools already rely on to manage administrative contact with parents, many of which improve efficiency, save money, and make life easier for both the school establishment, parents, and teachers. But by itself, this approach is not enough. We need to enable a role for parents that harnesses their strengths, not their weaknesses. This is where a parental participation strategy can help. The Centre for Social Justice's campaign launch report recognizes the need for a wider understanding. I quote, "Parental participation incorporates parental involvement and parental engagement." These labels have previously been confused within the academic research itself. Although for the last 15 years at least, academics have tried to use parental involvement to describe those administrative necessities that support the pupil's schooling, and parental engagement to describe how schools can help parents support their child's learning. In an age where it is a common occurrence for exercise books to be kept in schools, many parents only get the opportunity to see what their children are doing in class on a very few occasions during the year, most commonly at parents' consultation meetings. I quote now from Goodall and Montgomery, quote, "Engagement with children's learning may not equate to and should not be judged on the basis of engagement with school. Many parents find engagement with schools difficult, but still have a strong desire to be engaged in their children's learning and education." In my next article, I'll explain how we have solved that problem without creating a workload for teachers, actually just the opposite, and increase the number of positive conversations in 89% of homes about what children have been doing in school, and how 95% of parents said that they had a better understanding of how to support their children's learning, all without a single exercise book leaving the school premises. In the high-pressure environment of today's schools, where the focus of enabling the highest possible levels of examination performance is used in the evaluation of a school's success, it is easy to understand how teachers see schooling as the most important element of a child's learning, but it is not. As we have seen, schooling is a subset of learning. It contains all of those subjects and topics that schools teach, and we know that the content will vary from school to school and from subject to subject, depending on which examination board a school follows. Schooling accounts for 20% of all we learn. Learning encompasses everything else we learn during our lifetime from a very wide range of sources, making up 80% of what we learn. It is by developing a love for learning in all its forms, hobbies, participation in arts or sports clubs, membership of youth groups, cultural groups or religious groups, community-based projects, work experience, participation in family activities, sharing responsibility for cooking a family meal, intergenerational family celebrations, family trips and holidays, all of which provide opportunities to learn, that parents can have the greatest impact on their children's school performance. They do this by showing an active interest, such as making positive comments or asking simple questions about their child's school-based learning. Vitally, the national campaign also recognises the importance of enabling parental participation in learning. This approach is far simpler, far more effective, and far more profound than expecting parents to engage with schooling or helping with homework. It allows parents to do what parents do best, and it needs no educational qualifications. Returning to where I started, we have to use proven science. I'm not asking you to take my word for it. The methodology that I'll be revealing in my next article will provide evidence from the independent academic research conducted by Professor Janet Goodall from Swansea University. Janet is one of the most widely published academics writing on the subject of effective parental engagement. The research was conducted as part of our award within the DFE EdTech Innovation Initiative, and it's his research that was subsequently submitted to and validated by the process of academic peer review. We will look at the recent research on brain development from a joint Harvard-MIT research project that used brain scanning to see the brain function in the areas of the brain associated with language and learning development in young children, and how this is stimulated through simple conversations with the child's nurturers. We will consider the enduring power that parental approval has on the human mind for people of all ages, and we will look at the science that underpins it. Yes, parental engagement works not only with those preschool and of compulsory school age, it can carry on motivating us throughout our lives. We will consider how an assumption that schools' reliance on data and the need to reduce teacher workload by using technology to remove time-consuming tasks, such as report writing, would naturally convert into information parents would welcome and understand. In adopting this approach, we have overcomplicated the parent-school relationship and convinced many parents that they have nothing to add to their child's learning experience. Where parents wanted simply to have regular updates about their children's achievements and see how they were facing their challenges and whether or not they were happy in school, we gave them spreadsheets. More importantly, we will discover how a new approach, bringing a unique concept that moves with the times to harness the potential of technology designed for the 21st century rather than the end of the 20th century, provides a solution that enables schools and all parents to work together to improve pupil learning. Thank you for listening.